Sorry about that, guys. I was just looking for wherever in the world Jalen Milroe was trying to throw the ball this past week. Welcome back to the Southern Showdown podcast. It is week 3. We finally got some SEC matchups. I know we kind of got a preview of an SEC matchup with that Alabama-Texas game last week, but yep, here we are climbing into week 3. Last week, man, it's kind of sad. Last week I went 2-8 with my spread picks. I do not do good with the SEC. I'm a lot better outside the SEC, y'all. Check out the TikTok. But what do you have with us?
I definitely did not do a lot better, but I went 3-7, which puts me at 8-11 total in the past 2 weeks. We started off horrible, absolutely horrible with our SEC picks, but we're gonna turn it around. I'm going to have a positive record by the end of this week. That's my goal.
Yeah, granted, the SEC's kind of been letting us down, have they not? I mean, have we won an out-of-a-conference game yet that's not been an FCS opponent?
I think we're –
besides, like, Tennessee and Virginia?
I'm not sure. I think I heard 3-8 against non-SEC opponents or something this past week, or maybe week 1.
So we can't feel bad. We're just trying to back the SEC. Overall, I am 6-13, you guys, on my SEC picks. Just hasn't been a great run at the beginning of this year, sad to say. So I guess we'll climb into last week's recap, and we'll just go ahead and climb into the one that all y'all want to hear about. Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns march into Alabama Stadium and just take care of business. This was a pretty even matchup game. It was I wouldn't say it was a back-and-forth game because Texas really kind of owned the game. They controlled the game, but I don't really look at this game as which team played a whole lot better, more of which team made more mistakes and which team played worse, and that answers Alabama. I mean, Jalen Milroe with the 2 interceptions that end up inside of their own territory, inside of their own 30, that result in 10 points. You have a 10-point loss here. That's kind of how I see it. But all props to Texas. I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and hop on the train that Texas is back. I'd say Texas is back. But what I won't hop on the train and say is that the Saban and Alabama dynasty's over. Whoever's saying that, I mean, you got to be kidding me. With people storming the fields the past 2 years whenever they beat you, and the people react the way they do whenever you get beat by a team. Obviously, your dynasty's still going. I don't think Alabama's going anywhere. So
I will say something. You used to hearing "We want Bama" chants, but this past weekend you heard some "We want Georgia" chants from the Texas Longhorns, and that says something about what Kirby Smart's doing over there, that Georgia football program. Speaking about Georgia football, Donnie Mitchell once again just slaughtering at the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think he had 2 receiving touchdowns. He had that one bomb that he caught, and he also caught the game-winning catch in that SEC championship and national championship game.
Yeah.
So, and against Ohio State too. And then he decided to go ahead and transfer to Texas. I'm pretty sure that's where he's from. Might have been for NIL. Texas is a big NIL location, but Jalen Milroe, like you said, just did not look sharp. He looked like the Jalen Milroe of old, not like the one we saw in Week 1.
Right.
The one in Week 1 gave a lot of Alabama fans hope that he worked this past offseason and improved, but he just looked sloppy. I mean, there was one pass he threw into like triple coverage, and I had no clue who he was trying to throw the ball to. It just went straight to a Texas defender, and I guess I can't really say much because Tennessee did not look very good either. but I just thought Texas controlled the game, and that's an impressive win. First 10-point loss at home for Saban during the Saban era. So that's just absolutely insane. He's definitely the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion.
Yep. I'm sure he is not pleased with the Donnie Mitchell. I mean, it's got to be like, man, I kind of hate that kid at this point with the 2 games.
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe, man, when he's on the ground, he runs like he stole something. But he's got to fix out his problems through the air. His deep balls look pretty good, though. The next one, you got a little something for us on the Vandy Wake Forest game. I couldn't keep up with all of them this week. So, I know they should have done better than they did.
It's kind of hard to keep up with games because we were at the Tennessee game, and that was honestly such a disappointing showing that I really made me sick to my stomach to watch any football. I mean, we were sitting there, we were like, why are we smiling right now? We're up 10 points against Austin Peay. But Vanderbilt, this game, they just kind of shot themselves in their foot the whole game, to be honest. I mean, there was A.J. Swan threw 2 interceptions, I believe, and they there was a lot of turnovers and miscues and things that didn't go Vandy's way. I know Vanderbilt had a fumble recovery that ended up being a touchdown. So I mean, they also had some things swing their way, but they just shot themselves in the foot too much that Wake Forest kind of ran off with this one. It just should have been a closer game than it was. 16 points is not very indicative of how the game went.
Yeah. I was a little bit high on Vandy at the beginning of the year, and like I said earlier, they lost their first game, and like you said, the first of many. It is probably going to be the first of many. I predicted them at the beginning of the year to beat Wake Forest. Looking at the stats, though, it looks like A.J. Swan threw the ball pretty well, at least a good amount of yards, but looks like Wake Forest kind of killed them on the ground. So that's really all I've got for it. I couldn't really keep up with it, but sorry for Vandy once again. Next one we'll climb into is the Georgia-Ball State game. We were able to check this one out, at least in the first half. It looks like another kind of a slow start for Georgia this year. I don't know if any of the Georgia fans are worried about that. Like I said at the beginning of the year, I think they have South Carolina circled for this first game, SEC contest, So maybe they're just out there practicing against these teams and trying to put it together as they go. And if so, they sure are good at coming back in the second halves and just destroying these teams. Georgia's always been a good second-half team, and they look like they continue to do that now. So at least that's something positive to look at for Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it was definitely another slow start from Georgia. But, I mean, think about last year. We saw a couple of slow starts against Missouri, against Kent State. It's teams that they shouldn't be letting play with them, but they're kind of playing with their food a little bit. I don't know if it's the same this year because – I mean, they had 2 quarters where, they didn't even score at all against Ball State.
Playing with their food.
Yeah. And they also had 3 interceptions and a punt return. So, it's not like they just ran the ball down their throat and threw all over them and just dominated. There was multiple times where they started with great field position or they had a great special teams play that helped them win the game. So I feel like once it gets to SEC play, they need to step up. And this week they're playing South Carolina. I think they're definitely going to get the best of South Carolina just because their pass rush and obviously South Carolina's offensive line has had a lot of struggle.
I agree with that.
But Georgia, I think they need to kick into second gear like they did the second half of the season last year.
At least at the beginning of the games. I know, who knows if South Carolina gets an early start, Rattler throws one deep. You don't like to play from behind. Georgia's not bad at doing it, though, whenever they do get behind. The next one we'll go into is the Eastern Kentucky and Kentucky game. Eastern Kentucky kind of gave them a run at the beginning of this game. I believe at the beginning of this game it was actually 7-0 Eastern Kentucky, and that was until the end of the first half. And then Kentucky returned a punt all the way down to about their 30. Once they got to their 30, it was kind of easy for them to get in the end zone. But we have 7-7 at halftime.
Yeah,
can't say much because of our showing this weekend. But it ended up being 28-17, so they did take care of business, but another one that's a little too close for comfort for Kentucky, and Tripp faded them again, and he got him a dub on that one.
I'm going to continue to fade the Kentucky Wildcats. Y'all were talking about me hating on the Kentucky Wildcats. Christopher said something about it last week. They barely covered week 1. They shouldn't have covered. It was special teams, again, that helped them cover, but, this week, I don't think they're covering again, to be honest. But go ahead and give you a preview into my picks. I don't think if it's anything over 15 points, I don't think they're covering. But I will say a good thing is Devin Leary looked great in this game. He had 4 passing touchdowns, 300 yards through the air. He threw all over them. And special teams, their punt returner is legit. That kid is quick. He makes a lot of good moves, and when you're kicking off to him, you get a little nervous. But other than that, Kentucky they just came out stagnant, and second half, it's not like they dominated. It was 21-10 second half. You know what I mean? And
it was a football game.
It was just not a good showing from Kentucky this past weekend. Nor was it a good showing for Tennessee. If y'all want to say something about that, but where are we going to next?
hop off that real quick. Next, we're going to Texas A&M and Miami, down in Miami, Florida. This was a really good back-and-forth football game. One team would get ahead, then the next team would get ahead or answer. It was an extremely good back-and-forth football game. it just Miami ended up getting the best of them. I know that Kyle Van Dyke in this game, he threw for 70%, 370 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's just impressive. I think the pivotal point in this game was, let's see, when was it? A&M missed a field goal, and then let's see, Miami drove down and scored. Oh yeah, Miami drove down and scored with like a minute left in the game. So they threw a good 2-minute offense together, and then right after that they have after the half, Texas A&M only scores 3, and then Miami drives back down the field, scores again, and that's just that's kind of when the pivotal point turned for him. I know Wiegman, he also had an interception in this game, and they might have had another turnover. So it's kind of like I said in that Texas and Alabama game, who made the most mistakes?
Yeah,
and that seemed to be Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shootout throughout the whole game. I think it was 21-17 at halftime. I just feel like Miami, every time I went to go check on that game, I watched that game, it just seemed like Miami had an edge that entire game. And then they had that pivotal point like you're talking about where it turned around a little bit. But when you're playing in a game, especially a shootout like that, whoever turns the ball over usually is the team that's going to win. Like you said, whoever makes the most mistakes. You got to play pretty much a perfect game when you're playing a good team. And I feel like these are two pretty solid teams, and Miami just turned out to be better this week.
Right.
So.
Yep, mistakes and shootouts will really get you. Next one we'll climb into is Ole Miss and Tulane. You got anything on that one for us?
Well, Ole Miss, 17-point victory. That's impressive against a team who beat USC last year. Jackson Dart,
good Tulane team.
Jackson Dart once again looking very, very good. I think he's somewhere in those Heisman odds, probably in the top 10. He's had a bunch of impressive games to me. He's looked much more matured, not throwing the ball into traffic as much as he has been. He did have a interception in this game though, which luckily didn't really bite him in the butt too bad. It was a close game all the way throughout this game, and in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss just took over, shut them out 20-0, and just they showed up when they needed to and took control of that game.
Yeah, exactly. Really, the way they finished the game is the way that this game ended up turning out.
20-3, sorry.
At one point, it was 17-7 though. In this game, Tulane was up 17-7, and Ole Miss just kicked it in another gear and turned it on. I believe that a big play that Lane Kiffin always got to be gutsy. He was gutsy once again. They were up 3, and it's 4th and 4. They are in their territory, but they're in field goal position. All they have to do, there's I believe there's 4 minutes left in the game. So really, if you just kicked another field goal here, you force their team to have to go down and score a touchdown. Not Lane Kiffin. He goes for it on 4th and 4. He ends up getting the touchdown on that exact play. So then they're up 10. Really hard to come back from that 10-point deficit with 4 minutes left. So that's what really was the difference for me in this game.
Another struggle game.
No, yeah.
Struggle win for Arkansas against Kent
SEC
State.
tends to struggle with Kent State, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. It was kind of like the Tennessee game, to be honest. I mean, 28-6. It just very slow start, stagnant offense to begin the game for Arkansas. But much like that game, I feel like they might have been not using their whole playbook out there. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of variety in the play calling. And Raheem Sanders did not play in that game, their stud running back. But still, their offense should not have struggled as much as they did against Kent State. KJ Jefferson threw a couple of touchdown passes, and they ended up kind of rolling through them. They scored 7 points in every quarter.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That's kind of a odd thing. I don't know what to really say about that. I don't really know what to say about this game. I don't know what to think about Arkansas.
Yeah, at this point I don't either. KJ Jefferson only had 136 yards through the air. I don't know if he came out at some point in this game. I didn't watch the game, but 28-7 over Kent State. It's nothing terrible to look at, but at the same time, it's nothing great to look at. I mean, Kent State, I'm pretty sure they have a pretty solid defense like they did last year, so not a lot to take from this one. Besides, it's probably these teams. I feel like they're just overlooking to next week. Not exactly that they're overlooking these teams. They're ready to play these teams. They're prepped for them, But at the same time, I think they're already prepping for week 3. It's time to get into conference play. We should be able to take care of these teams. It's either that or with all the NIL, all the new transfer stuff going on. Really, probably mostly the transfers is maybe these weaker opponents are actually getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to look at. And at the same time, I don't know, is the SEC taking a decline? I wouldn't like to think so, but it's something to look at, it's something to think about as we climb into another one, Tennessee and Austin Peay, one that should have been handled better than it was.
Absolutely. Definitely should have handled it better. I'd like to say sorry for hopping on that Tennessee train just a little too hard lately, and then we just disappoint like this. But honestly, I don't know what to think about this Tennessee team anymore. I thought, to be honest, we were going to go out and dominate this game, but I feel like we only used like 20% of the playbook. I mean, we ran screen pass after screen pass, little inside zone run plays after, Jalen Wright had 118 yards on the ground. He only ran the ball like 12, 13 times. He's second in the FBS in yards per carry. He's 9.3 yards per carry. We could have just ran him all game, but for some reason we just didn't. It looked like we were out there practicing. That's what Chris. We were on the phone earlier today, and Chris said it looked like I was watching a practice or something against the scout team, and the scout team came to play.
Yeah,
that Austin Peay team came in with way more fire. They were jumping around the entire game. I mean, the crowd would boo them, and they're on the sideline jumping. So this game also got a little scrappy. I mean, there was a point where there was 2 Austin Peay guys holding down a Tennessee defender and picking him up, slamming him, choking him on the ground. They didn't show that on TV, though. They showed the part where he got up and threw some punches, but they didn't show the part where he got tag teamed. Just wanted to throw that out there so that clear his name. But Tennessee just slow start. Absolutely looked like dog crap, and I think we're going to have a bad taste in our mouth turning around in the swamp. What you got?
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it did almost look like we were out there at practice, but I can promise you that Austin Peay didn't come to practice. They came to play. They really did. They were fired up. As we watched the game, and they started warming up over there on their side of the 50. I was just looking at them, and I looked at Tripp, and I was like, this team didn't come here to lose, and I was already a little bit worried. Not that Tennessee was underprepared by any means or looked like they didn't care or nonchalant, but I could just tell that Austin Peay was there. They're from Tennessee. They're playing Tennessee, the 9-ranked team in the country. It's their Super Bowl. I completely understand. They were well coached. They looked good. Tennessee, they had I think they had like 200 yards rushing on the ground, at least. I don't know what the actual number is. I'm not looking at it, but that they ran the ball really well off of very few rushes. So I don't really think that – I think that they were practicing some things. They threw lots of screens. They were doing lots of one plays. They were just running screen to the side, screen to this side. So I really think they were trying to work out some kinks before they step into conference play. And hopefully they did work those kinks out. The biggest thing was at the beginning of the game, lots of drops. I mean, we're talking multiple drops, like 7, 8 drops possibly. And I'm not going to blame it all on the receivers, but it was hitting them in the hands. Joe Milton was a little off on these passes. They should have been a little more to the lead rather than to as they're running this way to the backside. But these receivers should have had good enough hands to catch it.
Yeah.
So I hope we're ready to step it up as we walk into the swamp, because I can promise you that they're going to be ready, as they just dogged McNeese last week. So yeah. That's what I got to say for them. I guess we'll climb into Missouri and Middle Tennessee State, one that I believed that Missouri was going to cover on, and they dang sure didn't. And yeah, they proved. I mean, they do have a good defense, but obviously Middle Tennessee State did enough to put up 19 points, rather than the lousy 3 that they had against Alabama the week before. I think they were ready to defeat their team too.
I think Missouri's defense is what got them the win here. I mean, I know 19 points against a team like Middle Tennessee State isn't really what you want to see, but their offense absolutely did not come to play. I mean, only 10 points in the first half and 13 in the second half. They actually lost the fourth quarter. So, I mean, it was really just their defense holding on enough for their offense to put up enough points to just hold off Middle Tennessee State. It was the definition of a struggle win, and Missouri just did not look good at all. Just flat out sucked. if they play against any type of SEC team or a team better than Middle Tennessee State, like Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State or even Clemson, and I know they just got beat by freaking Duke. If they played anyone like that, they're getting beat. So they got to offensive side of the ball has got to turn it on.
Yeah. We're gonna just kind of fly through a couple of these because there's not really much to say about them. Not just because we're going into the Gator Hater week, but Florida absolutely took care of business against McNeese, and that's really all there is to say. I mean, Graham Mertz, he threw for 193 yards, and they looked great on the ground. I mean, golly, that kid ran for 119 yards, but they probably were trying to do the opposite of. I'm not saying they weren't overlooking or by any means to Tennessee. I'm sure they're already looking at Tennessee, but they needed to shake off that loss from Utah and go ahead and just beat the crap out of somebody. So I'm sure they really did look at McNeese and make sure they did that, and they absolutely did that. Can't take that away from them. So.
And then Grambling versus LSU. I mean, LSU just stomped them 72-10. Jaden Daniels had 5 passing touchdowns and about 270 yards through the air. It was just complete dominance. There's really nothing else to say about it. They ate their cupcake and they didn't choke on it. You know what I'm saying? So what's next?
Next we got the Arizona-Mississippi State, one that ended up going into overtime. I did not expect this one to have to go into overtime.
This is a very surprising game to me.
Very surprising game. It was kind of a defensive matchup, a defensive game a little bit, although Arizona, I know their quarterback threw for like over 350 yards.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing that kind of stood out to me was Will Rogers he hasn't really slung it through the air yet this year.
Yeah. I mean,
that kind of worries us as we had them as our dark horse, and
yeah.
The biggest thing we said about them, why we have them as our dark horse, is Will Rogers is going to just throw all over everybody like he's done his whole entire career. I mean, but he's yet to do it this year.
Just as a vouch for Will Rogers, they only threw the ball 17 times. That is unheard of in Mississippi State football. They are used to that air raid offense, and they ran the ball the majority of the game. I mean, their running back had 24 carries, if I believe, and 160 yards or 123 yards. I mean, and they ran the ball a lot, and their defense won them this game. I know you're sitting here thinking 24 points. Their defense won them this game. They had 5 turnovers. Okay, you can't have 5 turnovers against anyone and win. If you do, then I don't even know what to say. That's insane.
Yeah, it's just,
but
it's almost more sad to say about Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Though. I know they forced 5 turnovers, but at the same time, it's like they had to force 5 turnovers to win this game.
Yeah, they had to force 5 turnovers to beat a weaker, inferior opponent, and they had to take them to overtime to do so. And I mean, it's not like Will Rogers didn't play good. He was 14 for 17 on his, or 13 for 17 on his passes and 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. But Mississippi State, you're expecting them to air the ball out and him to have crazier numbers than that. But Mississippi State just didn't look. I wasn't convinced in that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Let the big dog eat. Let him throw it around the block a little bit. Next game, South Carolina and Furman. South Carolina took care of business against Furman. I thought they would beat them a little worse than they did, but good showing. Rattler throws for about 350. They didn't keep it on the ground that much. I think their best rusher had like 40 yards on the ground. Just took care of business against Furman as they step into this week to face the number 1 dog. Good luck to you.
I think, like you said, with Florida, this was a game to bounce back from that tough loss against North Carolina.
Right.
And still, the defense, 21 points to Furman. It's an FCS school, I believe.
Right.
And that's not what you want to see, especially when you're going into Georgia week. But Spencer Rattler finally got a little bit of protection this week, threw 4 touchdowns, 350 yards to the air. He just absolutely aired it out. I mean, looking like last year, we need to see some improvement from Spencer Rattler if this South Carolina team wants to be better than an 8-4 team. You know what I mean?
Right.
But let's hop into Auburn versus California.
Auburn,
Berkeley.
Cal, big defensive matchup here.
Probably the
ugly.
most boring game I've ever stayed up at 3 a.m. to watch. Auburn had 6 first downs in the first 3 quarters of the game. 6 first downs. That's how this game went. It was extremely defensive. They had under 100 passing yards. absolutely atrocious, and they won the game. So
I was about to say, how did they win this game?
eh,
I did not get to stay up till 3 and watch this one, and I didn't watch it over. So, as I'm sitting here looking at the stats, how in the world did Auburn win this game?
I mean, they were down for the majority of the game. In the fourth quarter, they scored a touchdown. Their defense just held on. It was very boring. Very, very, very boring watch. I mean, it was 10-7 at halftime, and it was 10-7 up until like 8 minutes left in the fourth
If you're
quarter.
a defensive guru, you loved this game.
Yeah, it was a defensive battle.
Or it really was just poor offense. I have no idea.
It was it was not a fun game, but it was a gritty road victory, is what the SEC analysts like to say.
I hear you. So we'll go ahead and hop into this week's games.
Yep, let's walk through this week's games and our picks. So the first game we want to talk about.
We can go ahead and hop on Kansas State versus Mississippi.
No, it's Missouri.
It's Missouri?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is one of my biggest picks on TikTok, and I don't even know who they're playing. I was trying to get this fixed over here on the iPad. But, yeah, Kansas State versus Missouri. I definitely have Kansas State covering the 4.5. This is one of my biggest picks of the week. I'm not the greatest at picking SEC football, but I do have 2 of these as my picks. Last week I went 3-3 on my favorite picks. So take a look at the TikTok. Kansas State versus Missouri. Yeah, I got Kansas State minus the 4.5. I think they'll be able to do enough offense. As Middle Tennessee State, I mean, they put up 19, so I think a team like Kansas State could for sure put up something like 28 and then hold Missouri to 21 or something like that.
I'm glad you're not picking the SEC because you picked the games last week. I mean, what was it? You picked 4 games, 3 wins and a push. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Three for 3 with 1 push.
I'm glad you're missing the SEC because I'm missing pretty bad too. But I also have Kansas State covering the 4.5 point spread. Only reason I have this is because Missouri just started off really slow. And it's gonna they're gonna depend on their defense too much in this game, and I just don't know that the offense is gonna put up enough numbers for them to win this game. And I have Kansas State winning by about 10. So that's what I think.
Kansas State winning by about 10. I hear you. That's about what I've got too. I mean, that's why I've got them as one of my favorite picks. The next one we can go ahead and hop into is LSU and Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
LSU and Mississippi State. I've got LSU covering this number. Mississippi State just hasn't looked promising enough for me on offense. If they do finally let Will Rogers sling it around, then maybe I got beat on this one too. But I'm taking LSU minus the 9.5. I think maybe they just covered by the 10. Honestly, LSU could turn this one into something ugly if they take out their frustrations from Florida State on them.
Here's our difference, and honestly, questioning my pick right now, but I want to stick with it because we had a lot of the same picks last week except for one, so I want to stay bold. Maybe I can get a win here, but Mississippi State, I think they don't lose by 10 points in this game. Like, I think it'll be a good game. I think Mississippi State has a bad taste in their mouth from that Arizona game, and they're going to be concentrate this week on LSU, and they're going to come out hot. Might have a hot start, maybe a bomb to start off the game or something like that. And I think Mississippi State, they could pull this game out. This is an upset watch for me because LSU got manhandled against FSU and then turned around, whooped up on Grambling State, but they could be overlooking Mississippi State, as a lot of people are.
I'm sorry for you, but the upset's not happening. Let's climb into one where I do think the upset is probably going to happen. This is Georgia, South Carolina. I'm just kidding with y'all. The upset Dogs on top, but I don't think they cover the 27.5, and I don't even feel comfortable, picking South Carolina to cover this 27.5. But I've got to take South Carolina plus the 27.5. I could really see Georgia winning this game by 28 points, and that if that extra hook would really help me if I could just have 28, and I'd feel decent about it at least. But I'm going to take South Carolina plus the points against a much better Georgia football team.
Back-to-back bold predictions. The South Carolina, Georgia's not covering the 27.5 spread. South Carolina is the team that always, just every once in a while puts up a fight against Georgia, even upsets them. I don't think by any means they're going to upset this Georgia team, but I don't think Georgia's going to beat them by 28 points. I feel like I just feel like South Carolina's offense is going to put up more numbers than Georgia will be able to beat them by 28 points. Jesus, I'm stumbling over my words. I'm like an idiot right now. But
yeah, we get where you're going with it.
I think that Georgia's pass rush is what's going to win them this game, but I
completely agree.
Do not think they're going to cover 27.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina's offensive line looked pretty weak against North Carolina, so they've got another team coming in Georgia. That defensive line is going to be tougher. So, Rattler, get ready. Put your big boy pads on because you better be getting hit all day. Next one we'll climb into is Alabama versus South Florida. Man, Alabama's about to take their frustrations out on South Florida, I believe. So that is why I do have them covering the 32. They might just cover, beat them by about 35. South Florida's decent football team. Got a good head coach. That's all I can tell you. They might turn something around soon, but yeah, I got Alabama covering the 32.
You know what? Back to back to back. No, I'm just playing. Nah, South Florida, they're gonna get their freaking butts kicked. They're gonna get whooped by Alabama. Alabama is angry from last week. Nick Saban is probably gonna withhold their water privileges this week at practice. I mean, Alabama is gonna beat the crap out of South Florida, but Golish did put up 52 points with them Vols last year, running that offense. So he might score a few points here and there, but
I don't think he's got the Jimmies and Joes.
He don't have the Jimmies and Joes. He may have the X's and O's, but he definitely don't got the Jimmies and Joes to beat Alabama or even compete with Alabama, in my opinion. I think Alabama covers the 32-point spread.
I hear you. Next one we're going to climb into is ULM versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M is giving up 36.5 points, and that's why I'm going to take ULM. I think this is just too many points for Texas A&M. Last time I said it was too many points for Texas A&M, I was wrong, but this time it's going to be different. ULM plus the 36.5, baby.
I agree. This is probably another bold prediction, but that's such a big number. And Texas A&M, they beat New Mexico by 42. That's not too far off from this 37 number, and they just put up 33 points against Miami. So I feel like because of those two games, it's making me think they might not beat ULM by 37 points. It's just such a high number. I do think they're going to go and take care of business. I think they're going to turn around from last week and try and prove something this week and just take care of business against ULM. But 37 points is a big number for me, so I don't think they'll cover that.
I gotcha. Next one is Tennessee versus Florida. This is one of my other favorite picks of the week on the podcast. So two of them are actually involving SEC schools. One of them I'm fading, and obviously you have to take an SEC school in this one because it's SEC versus SEC. But I'm definitely taking the Vols in this situation. This number would have been completely different if Tennessee would have just taken care of business against Austin Peay the way they should have. Now, granted, I get it that they didn't, and so you're saying, well, that's why the number is the way it is now. I'm just saying, I know it's in Gainesville, I know it's in the swamp, but I really, I just have Tennessee taking care of business and covering the 6.5. I did buy it down to 6, but yeah. I do believe though this is a really big game for Napier and the Gators after that loss against Utah, and I get that. I understand the magnitude of this game, but it's also a big game for Tennessee and the Vols. This is a pivotal point in each one of their schedules. You take an L here, and it just completely changes everything for the outcome of the rest of your season. So I look forward to this game, and Vols on top by 21.
I agree about that.
21.
It's definitely a big game on both sides. And Napier, I feel like it's a must-win right here in terms of his security with his job, because he's not really getting a whole lot of there's not a good enough outcomes from the past two seasons for them to question his ability as a head coach. But I think Tennessee does cover the 6.5. It's going to be a great game. I don't think the 6.5 points. I think if Tennessee wins by 10 to 14, I don't think that's going to show how good of a game it was. I think the second half is where Tennessee's going to turn it on. Probably a close first half. Second half, Tennessee takes over. I think all Tennessee has to do is stop the run. Last week, the running game, they had 300 rushing yards, and Graham Mertz, he just doesn't look very good to me. I think if Tennessee can make Florida one-dimensional and stop the run game, Graham Mertz is not going to win it for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have Tennessee covering the 6.5. I think Aaron Beasley is going to be a big player in this game. He is leading the nation in tackles for loss.
Absolutely.
And he is 5th in the SEC in sacks. And he is a stud, dude. He's a stud.
Yeah, when it comes to wreaking havoc.
He's gotten better and better every year.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just a disruptor in the backfield.
Absolutely.
And I think that him and Joshua Josephs and Tyler Barron and James Pierce and guys like that shutting down the run game, I think that's the reason that Tennessee covers this 6.5-point spread. I think they win somewhere around 34-24, something like that, like a 10-point game.
Yeah, this game's definitely won on the ground.
Yeah.
Completely. Next one we'll climb into is Vandy and UNLV. As I look down here and I've realized that I have Vandy circled once again for them just to probably let me down. Gosh, it makes me just want to just exit out and circle UNLV. But I'm going to take my Vanderbilt Commodores once again to please cover the 4 points against UNLV. Come on now. Come on, Vandy. Help me with something. I mean, Lord, y'all have made us look stupid up here, at least me. So, yeah, I'm taking Vandy once again.
No, I've been right there with you. I mean, week 1 I said Vandy by 30, and they just barely scraped by Hawaii. But
you didn't predict them to beat Wake Forest at the beginning of the
yeah,
game,
I didn't predict them to beat Wake Forest, but I did predict them to cover last week, and they did not cover. UNLV, I'm taking them this week. It's 4-point spread. I think Vandy barely does not cover that 4 points. I think they win by a field goal late in the game. I think they're just going to barely scrape by like they did with Hawaii. A.J. Swan, he's looked improved, but he's making too many like immature decisions, like rookie mistakes where he's thrown into traffic and holding on to the ball too long, things like that. And I think Vanderbilt just barely scoots by UNLV.
I hear you. You know, you're getting tired of backing Vandy and them letting you down. So
yeah, they let me down.
Might as well. Next one we'll look at is BYU and Arkansas. This is one I don't feel great about, but I'm gonna lay the points with Arkansas. I'm gonna take them minus the 8. I don't feel great about it, but I'm gonna do it.
I'm also gonna take Arkansas covering the 8-point spread. I also don't feel very great about it, to be honest, just because of how they played last week against Kent State. Just very slow. But I'm not sure if Raheem Sanders will be back in that game, but if he is, then I would take a 12-point spread. I think he is a huge, huge part of that football team. But I'm looking at KJ Jefferson turning it on. I'm looking at that Arkansas team just absolutely turning it on and being angry about last week. A lot of teams are angry about last week because the SEC just has not looked like the SEC these first 2 weeks.
Definitely not.
But what about Ole Miss and Georgia Tech? What do you got on that game?
Ole Miss and Georgia Tech. I'm going to have to take Tech plus the points. I know they look good in the opener versus Louisville, and that's the biggest thing I have on Tech. I know that they can throw the ball this year. You know, you're used to seeing these Tech offenses that keep it on the ground, try to ground and pound, try to control the clock. They're slinging it. So I've got to take Tech plus the points here, and I would love to see a Tech upset. I really would.
I would love to see a Tech upset. I just don't know if they're going to get it done. I mean, you're looking at an Ole Miss team who just beat Tulane by 17, and then the point spread against Georgia Tech is 18. So I feel like I have to take Ole Miss. It might be a trap pick. You know what I mean? Like, Tech, they are different than they have been in the past. So they used to run that, like, triple option, like, just slow, run the ball, burn the clock, like Chris said. And they've been slinging it this year. But I think Ole Miss is just more talented, a better team, a more physical team. And I think it might be close in the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters. But I think Ole Miss is going to eventually just pull away and never come back.
I hear you. I like Tech. I like Tech in that one. I really do.
Last game is a Kentucky versus Akron.
Kentucky versus Akron.
What you got on that game?
You know what? I'm tired of Kentucky too. I've been 1-1 with them this year, but I'm gonna have to take Akron in this one with Kentucky's slow starts. They might be. This is week 3. They might be ready to put it all together and, completely demoralize a team like Akron. But I gotta take Akron plus the points.
I'm once again fading Kentucky because they hadn't got it done really
Because you
all
hate
year.
Kentucky.
And I also just very biased. I don't like Kentucky. Just go ahead and tell you. Akron's not a good football team. Kentucky should beat them. Pretty good, but I don't think they're going to. 25 points is too big of a number when you're talking about the Kentucky football team. I don't care if they're playing Eastern Michigan State. I just don't think they're going to cover that. It's a lot of new people are out there. Maybe they mesh it together. Maybe Devin Leary last week he looked great opposed to his week 1 performance. Maybe he's learning that offense a little more, and maybe he's getting more experience. He's getting better chemistry with the guys out wide. So maybe they'll put it together and finally beat up on a team that they should beat up on. But for now, I'm taking Akron, and I don't have Kentucky covering 25 points.
I'm with you, man. I just hope we have a better set of picks this year or this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good Lord, we need a little something. I hope everything you have against me, I hope I get you on. I need the edge. I'm down by 2 right now. Down by 2. So y'all send some love to me.
How many games do we have different this week? Let's see. I got different on this game, and
I think 2.
2. So you could completely tie me this week with the.
Yeah, we get tied up. Let's tie it up.
Let's put our foot on that neck. You know what I'm saying? Let's get out of here. I'm excited for next week. We'll see how this week goes. Hopefully them balls turn around.
Yep.
We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys. Go Vols.